My name is Nadia Wahali. I am the general manager here at the Latitude Center. And I'm so excited and grateful to have you here with us this evening and have David share with us his wisdom and just the everyday David. Like sometimes I wish I lived like above him or underneath him or wherever I'm going through a crisis or where I am either I'm unleashed or I've spiraled out of control because of a relationship or a misunderstanding. I can always count on him and reach out to David for just guiding me through what I already know and what is already inside of us as women and men as well. So thank you for creating this space for us and bringing us together as a community. And relationships are critical. It's really what makes us human, and it's part of our DNA. We need to be connected to a tribe or to a group. So thank you. I desired intimacy, but I settled for sex. Wow.
Yeah.
What happened?
Okay, so good evening, everyone. And thank you for coming, and thank you for being a part of this intimate time that we're going to share around relationships and intimacy and just how to be a human being and the biggest enterprise that we probably enter in our lives are our primary relationships as it relates to marriage and partnerships and long-term experiences. So this particular book came out of for about 3 years, that's all I did was study around relationships, and I worked in the capacity of a relationship coach for 3 years. That's all I did. And so people would come and started, it was like 93, 94, I'm aging myself now, but it was a time when Waiting to Exhale, the movie had come out, and it was a big deal, and so I decided to do some work around this particular idea around what it means to exhale, how to be in this relationship. So can you imagine for 3 years, those are all the books that I read? Those were basically all the conversations that I held over time. And so as time progressed in my particular field in personal coaching, it seemed to be a central thread. Just whenever someone could say, I'm coming for my career, I want career pathway advice, or I'm thinking about leaving Atlanta and moving to New York, and I just need to know how to transition into that particular area. The central thing that normally comes out of that, I always say, so where are you in your relationships? Because we can't do this by ourselves, so who are you related to? Or I may get calls, we're married now and there's no spark. Or I'm single, how do I navigate this Atlanta terrain? Because I'm single. And then the other piece that came out was around sex. Like, people were getting it in, but there was no connection. They didn't have the intimacy. They were having, I guess, phenomenal sex. I'm not quite sure what that looks like. I'm not saying that I haven't had phenomenal sex, but I can say that. It's okay, I know what that is. Okay, I'm trying to help myself here. But what I heard was intimacy. Because the aftermath of the sex, the questions came, well, they didn't call, right? Or I sent a text, or they blocked me on Instagram, right? All that stuff that comes along with it. Or they only call at 10:30, 10:45, right? And the question is normally, so what's up? What are you doing? Where are you? So you kind of know where this is going. And so the aftermath of that was really around intimacy. And so it wasn't really, they never complained about sex. People never complained they weren't having good sex. They often complained about connection and intimacy and feeling vibrant. If you've been in a long-term relationship, married for a while, you kind of lose your edge. So I knew the desirability for intimacy was there, but people were having sex. And so one day in the middle of the night, the title came. And so I just took stories and things that I knew from my own past and my own experiences with people working with couples for a very long time. And I decided to kind of delve into it just a little bit deeper, which brings us to this moment.
So what I'm hearing is that there is a distinction between those two that a lot of us are not aware of, and if it is, I guess the first sort of number one is intimacy. So what is intimacy?
Well, there's so many components of how to be intimate. Everybody has their own definition of what intimacy is, right? And so we have to define that on the front end. What do we need to hear? Right.
Can I just interject
Sure.
and say this is really like open for a conversation? So if anybody wants to share something about what intimacy is, we'll throw in these questions. You're welcome to come up and grab the mic and help us out as we like, this is open. This is all of us talking.
Yeah, so just act like you're in the living room at home, right?
You are in the living room.
Right, we're in the living room at home, right? So please don't be shy around it. Everybody's definition of what it means to be intimate is different. I think we have to define that on the front end. And I think as the needs of our personal lives changes, the need for intimacy changes. Right? And so sometimes it is meaningful touch. Sometimes it is something that you need to hear. Sometimes it is the physicality. Sometimes it's the mystery of the intimacy. Sometimes it's the edge that causes one to feel intimate, right? The element of surprise, right? You know the surprise, clear your calendar Friday night. Then you say, where are we going? Don't worry about it, I got it. Right? Then you just need to show up at this place. The element of surprise could also stimulate a level of intimacy. But really, underneath that is vulnerability and being trustworthy in that moment. To give oneself over into it in a way that do you feel safe, it's not predatory, that it's engaging, that it's reciprocal as well. So, but we also, what's connected to intimacy is the ask. And a lot of people don't ask for what they need. They assume that the person may know what that is, and then they miss the mark, and then we get the fallout. The fallout could be all of them XYZ, all these men, all these women, whatever, right? But oftentimes I go back and I say, so what did you ask for? Did you ask for intimacy? And how did you ask for it? What were your demands, right? Did you state your case on the front end that we're going to do this? This is how this is going to be. Or did you just assume that it was going to naturally progress into that way? And oftentimes, it doesn't happen that way. So what's connected to the ask, I've learned over time, is a historical marker there. How you love today, I can tell you how you loved yesteryear as a child. It's all connected. So show me how you love today, and I can show you how you was loved as a child. So if you were told to be seen and not heard, you'd probably play that out as an adult. If you were told to state your words, ask for what you want, say what you mean, use your words, speak up, don't be afraid. The world is your oyster. Go discover, play, explore, be adventurous. Then you probably play that out even now as an adult. So oftentimes we don't even know how that has been formulated environmentally, socially for us. And then we're trying to break through that particular barrier, and we think it's going to happen if we just find the right one.
So from what I'm hearing is one of the core ingredients of intimacy is that there needs to be an element of vulnerability.
Yeah.
Can you expand on that?
Yeah. So when we hear vulnerability, let me just raise your hand. Do we have an idea in the room what vulnerability is? Just kind of raise your hand. Vulnerability. Right?
Before we go to vulnerability, can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
So what I hear you saying is the generational patterns. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
The generational patterns are developing our individual patterns, and somewhere in there we're either discovering our own intimacy or we're following the pattern of our childhood into intimacy. Is that clear what you were saying?
Mm-hmm.
So in that case, we have group A who knows what they want and asks for it, and we have group B who assumes that they're going to get what they want and doesn't ask for it, and that's often the partnership that creates. Mm-hmm. Ooh, okay, go.
Yeah, so you mostly, yeah, she summed it up. Good night, everybody. We're done. But yeah, we normally we are attracting some part of ourselves that we think that is not there. So that person could be the I won't say the complete opposite, but they hold something within themselves that we are attracted to because we don't think somewhere along the line that we don't have that within ourselves. So that becomes the initial pull. But the work to stay connected where there's that big of a difference is the real stuff. And so you're normally going to run into some challenges because your partner is not there to, let me be careful about this. Yes, you're absolutely right. The ask is critical, it's connected to a historical piece, how we're raised, how we move through the world, gender is involved in that, regions is involved in that, cultural background is involved in that, religiosity is involved in that. So it's complex. It's really complex how we get to this moment. That all these things they intersect at any given moment. You cut me open, you're going to see my history in terms of how I was raised on the banks of Mississippi and Tennessee. You're going to see it. You're going to see my theology. You're going to see Mississippi is in there because I spent a lot of time with my grandparents. You're going to see all these things that really make up who I am. But then you also will probably see a break where I know the foundation is there, the history is there, but I broke off and I went another direction. And that's when the real work began to take place in terms of what it really means to be fully who I am in that vulnerability, and it looks like vulnerability at the end of the day. Yes, sir.
You're speaking on something I had thoughts about very, very recently.
Come on up.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You spoke on something that
Tell me your name.
Ivan. You're speaking on something I had thoughts about very recently as far as the parental relationship, because that's the first relationship we have. And when that's fragmented and you're aware, not that let me back up. I think our generation is blaming our parents for a lot of things, but I think they did the best they could. I think when we start to have children as well, like, because they're going to be way more advanced than where we are now. They're like, my parents would have did this, or if they would have let me be more free, or let me do what I want, et cetera, with the complaints with this generation. So I'm not blaming our parents, but I think they did the best they could. How do you reconcile where you see there was need for improvement, where there could have been more love, and you see that now, and you're not trying to blame them, but you're trying to move on and create better relationships with others around you? Because what you said is very true, that our parental relationship is our first relationship, so that sets the stage for everything else. And if that's fragmented or dysfunctional in any way, then it reflects in your life, and you're just going through these cycles and not knowing it. So how do you reconcile these dysfunctionalities?
So I love to, because I relate strongly to that question. And for me, what I realized is that I created stories, and I became this drama queen in this story. So my parents did some things that were not cool as a child, and I created this narrative that I'm not loved, I'm not worthy of love. I used, a simple example, I used to suck my thumb. And my mother, when I was 4 years old, she put me in the back of her car and said, "You're bad." Drove 20 kilometers outside of Casablanca and was going to throw me in the landfill. We drove to the landfill. This is a mountain of landfill. And for her, it was I needed to be the perfect child. I needed to be the perfect, whatever. And so I carried this all of my life into my 40s, saying I'm not good enough. And so when I entered relationships, I was not emotionally available. So I could not be vulnerable, and I could not be open because I met great people. I'm sorry?
You didn't know how.
I didn't know how, because I was always thinking I'm not good enough. I'm going to make mistakes. I need to be, that thing. But again, I created a story. My mother loved me. My parents loved me. They they wanted the best for me, but I did not realize that this was just a narrative that I created for myself, and I can step out of it. So anytime I feel that sense of lack of connectedness or weakness, or not being loved, or not good enough, I mean, that's something that women, we struggle with, where it's like, I am not good enough for him. Or I see somebody that's like, credentials are really, really good, and it's like, no, let me date somebody that's, I don't want to say less than me, but technically, like, you're not balanced, so you shrink yourself because you're scared that they get to see you. So I guess, like, looping back to your question, how do you reconcile it? It's just really recognizing that, like you said, our parents did the best that they could. And my mother, when she had me, she was 27. Like, if I had a child at 27, I would have been a hot mess. Like, I was banging like the woo, and like, I would have never, like, you know. So I think recognizing that they did the best. It is a story that's not who you are. It's what happened. What happened is they beat you. What happened is they were working to like provide for you, but that the love was always there. So.
And there is a difference between facts and truth. So the fact of the matter, these things do happen, and then over a period of time, you got to step into your own truth. And oftentimes, we're not separated what's factual versus what is our truth today. So we're not discounting that those facts, these things did happen, but now you have to step into your own personal truth. This is the biggest enterprise and the biggest decision that we would make in our lives, who we're going to partner with. And do you not know there are no schools for it? We got medical schools, we got business schools, we got law schools, we got all kinds of schools on major institutions, and there is not one building on campus strictly for relationships and, God forbid, sexuality and sex. We spend 4 years in undergraduate, another 3 years in grad school. If you go to medical school, you can add another 7 to that, and they go on and on and on. And we get the credentials, we get everything. And the biggest enterprise that we're going to enter is not the workforce, because we're going to change jobs over a period of time and change careers. It is our primary relationships around who we're going to partner with. And there's very little institutional learning around how to be in a good relationship. So we stumble and fumble, right? So we may go to the self-help section, Barnes & Nobles, we may cut on Iyanla, right? You may cut on Dr. Phil, right? But you haven't really figured out what does it mean to really be in a healthy, open relationship where not only are your needs met, but you're able to, that it's vibrant, that is edgy, that is alive, right? And the patterns are broken. Giving yourself permission to break the rules if you need to get what you need out of it. So that's a school of thought, right? So next time you go to Emory or you go to Morehouse, see if there's a building for relationships. Because we know people are having sex, lots of it. People are trying to date, going right? People thinking about marriage, thinking about having children, thinking about having a partnership. And then you go to school for 4 years and no one talks about it. And then you try to figure it out on your own, and then we end up in a place where it's not working for us. So what if this enterprise that is important to us, that is centralized in our lives, how would it be for us to be able to go into a building and get it in a way that transforms not only us, but the community that we serve as well? So that's my thought, right? So those of you who sit on boards, tell them we need a building for relationships. No, but I think it's the enterprise at the very beginning was an economic piece. We think about marriage, right? And that could be gay marriage, that could be straight marriage, however you want to define it for yourself. But the enterprise was initially around economics, and there was a duty and there was a loyalty in that particular system. The woman got married, her husband brought the money home. There was a pattern, and there was something that was set up that around gender and gender norms and traditions and customs that was centralized in those particular relationships. Well, we're not there as much. Women are working. They're graduating college at higher rates than men. They're completing graduate school higher rates than men. They are self-sufficient. They have their own money. And then now relationships look like something else now. Now it's about personal growth. It's about free will. It's about intimacy. It's about me. It's about sexuality. It's about pleasure. It's about play. Right?
And it's about a lot of these distractions too. Like I know something that you touched on in the book is, I'll just read it, where it talks about cheating is often about much more than sex. So something that a lot of us single women struggle with, and I don't know, right? So this, you know, and then we drive the men crazy because it's like, who you talking to? Like at first, like we're cool about it, but as soon as we get him, and then we flip. I know, I may not verbally say that, but there is a way that I show that I don't trust you. So we each have our own way of like expressing it. Is anybody present to this conversation?
I think they thinking like, yeah, and I don't want to say anything because...
Just from the ladies'
Well,
perspective.
David made a really good point because he said that there's a custom that no one ever needs me to use a microphone.
You do?
I speak for, can you all hear me? Okay, I'll use it, I'm sorry. I'm trying to break the system. I think that you made a very valid point where you say that previous marriage had custom, it had organized situation, it had structure, we knew our role, we knew our place. And as we changed those roles and our places, we're self-discovering and we're figuring out who we are in our relationship. And oftentimes, to Nadia's point, I did trust you when we first got together. I did trust you before we started living together and I saw your patterns of inconsistency and I heard your words that didn't match those actions. And as women, because we have this innovative custom in relationships now where we can be all we want to be and we can still be your everything, I think that we've gotten to a point where we're so good at being who we are as women, as leaders in our relationships, and sorry guys, I'm focusing on the women, that we inadvertently outthink ourselves. So either A, you're a cheater, and I'm spot on with everything I'm feeling, or B, you're not a cheater, and I don't trust myself. And either way, we self-sabotage, or we sabotage that relationship. And I think I'd love to hear from you, David, more, and you, Nadia, that as we enter 2018, without the structure, without the custom, we're all in free will. So back to that person who knows what to ask for, and that person who makes an assumption, we're missing the mark in our relationship because I got mine, do you have yours? And are we clear on what that is so we can have ours? Sorry guys, this is...
Also,
yeah.
And also what happens when the woman takes on the persona of the man, and she's the one that's
Preach,
cheating.
sister.
Because she doesn't want to be hurt, but now she dictates what happens to her. So she gets to date whoever she chooses.
Yeah, I think that, well, I mean, infidelity is different than, and cheating is different than if you're single and you can date in a larger pool of people. So we're in, am I wrong, sister? Am I right?
I'm listening.
You know, you can always clean me up and shake me. Okay, so you talked about 2018 and the dynamics of things have changed in terms of how we enter the space of relationships. But I don't know if the needs necessarily have changed over time, right? I think the lists have gotten longer in terms of what people are looking for. Because two things that since the primary marriage was in place, that we don't have a village anymore. So you used to get your needs met in the village, and then you had your primary relationship at home. But now the village is kind of torn asunder, right? And so we have a litany of things that we expect this person to be and do. Can I tell you a few? I just took some notes from some old clients I want to share with you. And I don't think God even made this man or woman, to be honest with you. I want commitment. This is the list. I want commitment. I want economic support. I want companionship. I want social responsibility. I want children. I want a best friend. I want a confidant. I want a passionate lover. I want an equal. I want the one who inspires me to do best in my life and my work. That's not even the list, all of it. That's a tall order to expect out of one person.
Is it?
I think so. So, you said, is it? So what do you think? So we have a list of wants that is connected to the grand idea of dreaming of being in a monogamous relationship. So you say, is it?
I think that this needs brought in just a little bit more.
Oh.
I think
So the
you
list
have
is long.
to be very specific in your wants and needs in order to achieve them, and that's coming from a 17-year-old relationship as well as a 10-year marriage. I've been married 10 years to my high school sweetheart. And and so you have to be more specific in your wants and your needs in order to get them. And I have learned that over the years. And communication is always key. Be very open and be able to compromise. So I think that's that. So that list, I don't think that list is
Impossible.
yeah, it's not impossible.
So that particular list is not impossible.
I don't think that particular list is impossible. I think you can add on to that list and still get that
So,
and be happy.
so I think there is this other thing that happened when I became sort of empowered to make a list and look at that list of like specifically what I wanted in a man and in a relationship. And then I started looking at like visualizing this brother, like what would he be like? And I'm like, if he's gonna have all these like Superman qualities almost, like then I've got to step up my stuff as well. And I think you talk about it in the book about sort of self-respect, because what happens to us, and I know for me, I'll just speak for me, what happened to me in these relationships where I've either walked away or they walked away from me, or where I didn't have integrity either, like not that I wasn't cheating or anything, I just wasn't emotionally available, is a sense of yourself becomes to erode. And you start like your self-respect is eroding. And so you don't work out, you don't eat well, you don't take care of yourself. So like that self-care concept is really not about like bubble bath and candles. It's truly like doing the work so that man is gonna show up and you are, it's a balance thing. You are both balanced. And I commend you for a 17-year-old relationship, because I know that requires reinvention, but the way you glow, it doesn't look like it's work either. So it's possible. Like when people say relationships are hard, I don't think they're hard. I think you can have both, where you could, by expressing, by sharing, by when you're vulnerable, when you do the work, it's true, but there is beauty to that work, and there is fulfillment in that work.
I'll say this. I'll say that love is the most simplest thing that you can have. It's relationships that get more complex.
Okay.
You get into a relationship and a partnership with someone, you are possibly over expecting something from them, and you haven't expressed that. So I can't expect something of you. We haven't had that conversation.
Yeah.
You know, we have to be open and just be receiving to what that person has to say, and be able to compromise if it's not your thing, or if it is your thing, go with it. And if you don't offer yourself true, then you just can't expect that from him.
So,
Yeah.
which I still want us to like get in this thing. Like you wrote this, so
Yeah.
it's not me. Right?
It's there.
Cheating is much more than about sex. So if cheating is not about sex, then what is it about? Because we look at it as
Sex.
yeah.
It's about feeling, oftentimes, what I've heard, it's about being more themselves, feeling vibrant, desired. That's been a central thing.
Feeling wanted.
Wanted and desired, and play. And the people that said this around cheating, and they'll tell you, I love my spouse. I'm not leaving them. So then it's not about the love relationship, which I say, that's why I said that cheating really isn't about the sex. It isn't about power. It's about those other things that we miss about ourselves. The mystery, right? The uncertainty, the ability to be off the cuff, right? To come out the boundaries, to break the rules. And many times in relationships that's been there for a while, we get into a pattern and then the rules are there, and then we don't break the rules and we forget that we need to break the rules, right? We need to go beyond another place. So the sex is secondary. It's the feeling of being vibrant and alive, more of themselves than they are in the relationship that they're in.
How do you continuously captivate them?
Well, when you are in a long-term relationship, I say to couples, especially if they have children, there's some things that I think you should do to break the pattern, right? It could be open up wine. On the money?
That was the time.
Yes. You can do other things. You have your phone. You can have a separate email. You can have an app just for you as a couple. Just for your love thing. You got to have space just for the lovers. That only you have access to. Just you and your partner. You send pictures, poems, little notes, whatever it is. That's that lover's space, right? That's play, right? It's not about the children. It's not about anything else. It's just a space that you two operate in, that you know the codes to, and when you get that ding on your phone, you know what's up. You know something's coming through that's good. It's going to make you smile. Another thing is, as well, is if you have children and you know that it's tough, when the last time do you have gone out and broken the rule to say, we're going to set it up so that we're not home by 10 for the babysitter? When the last time you've been out and you stayed out till 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning to feel young and vital? It's not about the drinking or that kind of stuff. It's about breaking the rules. So I tell couples, break the rules so you can get back to being vibrant. So that could be one area. It could be your date night can't end at 10. That's routine. You can do that at home. It needs to be something else. Push the envelope a little bit further, right? Number 2, allow the mystery to take place, right? Do something surprising. It could be blindfolds. Well, sometimes trauma is associated with surprise. If you haven't been traumatized through surprise, then I say surprise them, right? At some level. And the third thing is really think about, set up a separate email, a separate app, just for you and your partner. And those notes and those pictures and those ideas and those little innuendos is just for you. It's just for the lovers. So those 3 things can really help break the patterns.
I just want to add, men for the ladies, men are this is empirical, this is who they are, they are physical. So, you've got to keep it together. If you're, the same way we was fly, we got them, we got to keep it up in the relationship, my ex-husband's grandmother, her boyfriend of 30 years lived a block away from her. She would never see Miss Gertrude. Baby, go open the door, don't let him come see me. And every time she would come down, this lady was she was okay. She was just her wig, her nails was done. I have never seen Miss Gertrude always, slaying before the new generation talks about slaying. Something else that's happening in my parents is I've seen them together how they rediscover each other. They reinvent each other within the relationship. So you have to reinvent yourself. And you have to have sort of other outlets that are away from the relationship to keep that mystery where there is still that interest. And something that I've been doing that have been really, really amazing is I used to be scared of looking at people in their eyes. That used to scare me. I grew up in a Muslim country, so when you look at somebody's eyes, it's a sense of disrespect. So you have to go down. And now when I look at people like this, just look at David in his eyes, and I see a different person. I don't see the same David that I saw, that I was hanging out with at the sound table a month ago when I got rejected.
Oh, that's, yeah.
That was tough
rejection?
Yeah, it was, so a friend of mine was talking about this brother who sort of had an interest in me and like hook me up with your friend or vice versa. And so we're at a bar, he shows up and he has his, pound collar, like open button, and, like fresh, and it's Friday. And I had just came out of, literally I don't drive. I had this big bag with like sheets from West Elm and like flowers, and I was really ready for the weekend. I'm like, I'm changing my sheets, So I was just like powerful. Like I felt this sense of like just centered and happy, and so so he shows up, and my friend is like, oh, that's the guy. Like go, and so then this act happens where he's like, we're pretending, and I'm like, I'm not gonna do that anymore. Like if I like somebody and I have an interest, I'm just gonna go and talk to them. Like what's stopping me from I'm in control of my destiny. Like it's not about being an aggressive woman. Like I'm a lady. But there is still hey, we're at a club. So I go and I talk to him, and he literally was like, I don't want to talk to you. I have no interest in you. I don't like you. Pretty much. That was really what happened. But I think the victory, and it's funny because his name is Victor. What happened? It was like a victory over the past, where the rejection was not a reflection on me or a failure of me, or that I'm not good enough. He just is not into me. He's just not into me. And so it was just really, really powerful and empowering to deal with rejection and deal with failure and and confront that somebody that you had an interest in just knowing doesn't want to talk to you. And maybe he was just, I don't know what happened. He's just not available.
Rejection is a protection.
Yeah, it's a protection, but I could have Nadia of 2 years ago, that would have devastated me. I would have been like, I'm not good enough, I'm too fat, I'm this. Nobody I would have gone into that whole story about, I don't deserve love. So it was beautiful.
Your comeback was brilliant, though.
It was a brilliant
she was
comeback.
bad, I must tell you. I sat there and watched the whole thing unfold. I'm like, this really going on at the same time? Bartender, we're going to need 2 more, right? She doesn't drink.
I'm drinking.
But the rejection piece, I think this leads into the swipe right generation that we're in, the time that we're in, with social relationship apps, right? So, you have a bigger pool to choose from on these apps. Tinder. Mm-hmm. Yeah, right? And so, if anybody just want to chime in, because I'm not on those apps, I'll be honest with you. You look at my phone, there's no dating apps on there at all, right? They don't work for me, to be honest with you. So those of you who use a Tinder or Grindr or dating with Match.com, eHarmony, my God, Plenty of Fish, and Plenty of Fish on there. Who?
FarmersOnly.com.
Is there a website, an app? You don't have to be alone. All right. Well now. So SugarDaddy.com. Okay. Yeah. You guys are very busy around here. I see a multitude of things. So anybody want to chime in about what does it like to build a profile, and what does it look like to respond to a profile, and when you get rejected by a suitor or a person you deemed or whatever it may be?
I think when we're setting it up, we're putting our best face forward, but not the entire be ourselves. So
the
the
way
way
a lot of filters.
The way I address it, I try to be. I put statements like, I can't think right now. because I don't want to give too much away. It's private.
But,
But what I will say, I think the apps kind of, we objectify each other through them, and we're all kind of guilty of that because, like you said, you can just, you know, somebody, oh, this person hit you up and you're not into them, block. Or like, why would they hit me up? Can they see what I look like and what they look like? And then kind of like block. And then when it happens to you and you hit someone up and you know they're looking at you and they're like, did they see what I look like? And you get blocked. You're like, you know what I'm saying? But I think the apps kind of, they make I don't know, it commercializes everything. It's like you're an object, you're a product versus a person. And we are all individual types of coats or whatever, for lack of a better analogy. And which coat do you want this evening? Or to get to know, or to take it further. And then you have to make sure the intentions are the same. It overly complicates things, I think. And it takes...
When you check it, like, how do you know it's time for you to go on the app? Like, is there an indicator inside of you that says app time? Like, do you check it like you check your LinkedIn?
I had a friend.
When you bored.
The moment she arrives in the airport, she is on Tinder to see what's in the area. From Houston to Atlanta. So it's just
what it is.
whatever.
Were there notifications or something that she...
So notifications let you...
Someone let you know someone's interested in you.
So it's constant.
So it's constant. Mr. Hakeem.
So I'm somewhat jaded about like applications. I feel like our generation has kind of ruined it. Like that, when you talk about like intimacy and like the ability to like connect with someone. Because you meet people on social media all the time, they have all the answers, right? You find someone, they have all the answers. They're so articulate. You meet them in person, you're like, wow, like you're kind of awkward, right? But on their social profiles, like man, they have it all going together. So it's the same with LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram. I feel like it's all kind of that show Catfish. I feel like it's all kind of
Tinder is like very sleazy, so. But I think it's more like a representative, like you're putting out who you want to represent versus who you really are. You can become, this is who I really want to be, like, and I want you to know this side of me. I'm the adventurous side, I go skiing, I'm zip lining, but when you really meet me, I
Right, you want to.
And it makes people very bold. You would not walk up to me in the street and say the things that you say to me on these dating sites. And you don't put yourself out there like that. You're like, okay, I know how this generation is. It's very hypersexual. So I'm not going to put myself out there like that, conservative, whatever. And they still like, you know what? You have very large assets, like, can I see them? Like, what makes you think that that's okay to say, I don't even know your name? So I feel like it gives people this very false sense of security, like they have nothing to lose, so why not just put it out there? Whereas if you would meet me on the street, you wouldn't do that.
So a lot of boundaries and things, lines are crossed. Yes, sir.
All right, good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
Hello.
Okay, so I've been prodded by my neighbor to my right that I had to speak in some way, shape, form, or fashion and comment. And so I guess I'm compelled now to comply with her wishes and make a comment or two. So I guess as it relates to the apps of today, I'm a little old-fashioned in that sense where the wheel has already been invented. There's no need to reinvent this particular wheel. For example, Goodyear, I'm sure, back in Akron, Ohio, invented the wheel, the tire. You've had companies like Nitto, like Falcon, all these other companies that have made their own brands of tires, but it's still round, it's still made out of rubber. So I don't think that you need to reinvent how to engage personally with people. The second thing, I believe, is that when you have an app and you use that as your means to interact with people, it gives you a security blanket like Linus on the Peanuts comics, right? you don't have to worry about actually going and stepping out on faith and saying, hey, my dear in the green dress, wow, do you look beautiful tonight? Can we go and have a conversation over here? And worry about hearing that very famous two-letter word? No. Who wants to be rejected in front of somebody else? And so if you're on a dating site and you have your profile up and somebody doesn't like what they see, sure, it may still bother you, it may still sting a little bit, but it's not going to be in front of an audience of at least one other person or an audience of many if you're out at a social event. And so I think that what that does, like I said, is it certainly gives you a security blanket. It doesn't give you the ability to work on your confidence and work on those things that will make you more, quote unquote, socially acceptable. So the things that you talk about when you're out at a club or at a social event, they need to be more topical, they need to be more mainstream, they need to be things that are interesting. Whereas if you're only worried about putting out a profile, you may not necessarily work on those things. And so it takes away, I think, your ability to interact socially, and that's probably a struggle that we're having, and that we're seeing not just with today's young generation, but it even cascades to some of the older ones as well. You're welcome.
Especially the ladies.
Well, I personally have retired my app using days. I'm over that. That ain't gonna work for me. But if you guys don't mind me switching gears, because I just kind of want to address, like, I'm not a part of the group of, like, people struggling with, like, relationships or anything. Like, I'm the person that's, like, struggling with probably emotional availability, like you said earlier. And I find myself, like, I always kind of gravitate toward guys that are critical in some way, that basically kind of like to validate that there's something, like, fundamentally dysfunctional about me. So it's like if they're, and it probably goes back to, like, my childhood or something that's, like, buried or whatever, I don't know. But anyway, my question is, though, how do you break that cycle of, like, seeking that? Because I feel like it's like eating bad food when you're, like, already in bad health. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's comfortable, it's what you're used to, but you know that it's deteriorating you in several different ways, but you don't really know how to break that cycle. Like, I don't know how to attract people with healthy relationship skills. So I'm trying to figure out how to break that cycle so that I can enter the relationship that I desire, but I do not ever gravitate towards people that can give me that.
What's your name?
Darian.
Darian. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing. And that was really beautiful what you expressed, and I think you're not the only one. A lot of us could relate to that piece. So I think it's important to dig deep down and figure out what happened. Because something happened that you created a winning formula, and all of your life you've been using that winning formula because of that thing that happened at a younger age or in high school or something. And that winning formula has been your survival and has been what works for you. And so, for example, for me, my winning formula was, I'm going to dominate you before you dominate me. Not a control. So it was domination. And so what domination meant is that I dated men who didn't have the same educational background that I did. That were either blue collar, that were, I don't know, underground hip hop artists, you know. Bus driver.
Not easy to go.
And so, but because I did not think of myself as just like, you know, like smart, vulnerable, open, like, and organized. I'm unorganized. So what? I don't have my shit together. Like, so what? You know, I pretend that I have it together, but I don't. And so by dating certain type of men, I wasn't emotionally available. And so until I did that work and I discovered what my winning formula is and what my act was, which was I would walk away Like, most of my relationships, I was the one who said, this doesn't work for me, I'm out of here. I knew that from like initially, like I knew, you know it when you enter and you're like, this is not gonna work.
You know.
Yeah, and because you don't want to do the work either. You just want to Instagram and like babe. Instagram babe. You know, so that you're not judged, because there's a lot of shaming in it. Like when I hit 40, I collapsed. Like not in the sense of, oh, I don't have no babies, or like that wasn't there for me. It was just like, I don't have an Instagram babe. And everybody, all my friends have boyfriends on IG, and and what do I talk about? Like, it was so, like, it's for real. Like, this social media world, like, has us really, like, so my advice to you, and I'd love to work with you, like, offline, and we can just, literally, we can just go over there and get it out, and you can go out and be, like, unleashed and powerful, and you can make requests, and you can really, like, find what you want. It's really, it's attainable, it's there.
And I want to say this much fast before
Obviously, well, I was going to say. Okay, so for me, I'm going to be transparent with you to help as well. I grew up where I had to work for love. So in all of my relationships, I worked. It was always I had to do in order to be loved. So I grew up with that. So in order for me to get, I perceived that I had to do all of these things, and that was my experience growing up, that I had to do all these things in order for me to get recognized, to be seen, to be loved on, to be validated, to be affirmed. So I've always been a worker bee. So I was the one early Saturday morning, because I'm going to the skating rink, I'm going to the movies, I'm going to get on my bike, I'm going to Candy Lady, I'm going to do all those things I loved to do as a kid growing up. I'm going to the arcades, I'm going to do that. So if the yard is a barrier, I'm going to work the yard. Clean up the garage, the car. But I didn't know how to, but understanding that I didn't have to work for it was a big piece for me. And not only having to work for it, but now I also had to learn how to receive. How to just receive it in a genuine way. Right? And the receiving is huge. It's one of the biggest things I think that we can ever do, is be able to receive, especially coming from a place like I came from, where I felt like I had to work for love. And I'm learning every day how to work through that. And we got 3 other things, but I'm going to say this working fast. And Nadia was, whenever I say something to Nadia, I said, well, Nadia, even about this particular thing. She was like, oh no, don't worry about it. And I felt like we had to do something. You need me? Right? I'm itching to do something. Right? Because that's my nature. Is to fix it and to make things right. And then I sell it into, I'm here to receive tonight. This is good. It's going to work out. Whoever shows up is going to show up. You can't control it. You can't manipulate it. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just show up and be brilliant. So that was even happening tonight before you got here. So you see how much work you still have to do in yourself around that. So Allison, you can jump in.
To Nadia's point, and I'm sorry, what is your name, sister?
David.
Oh, David, you're not my sister.
Oh, okay.
I mean, you can be if you want to. I'm sorry.
Not tonight.
Carry on. So, I have previously been a serial engaged person. 4 rings, 4 engagements. Each one progressed further. The last one got all the way to a month before the wedding, and I was the runaway bride. Wow. Confessions of the soul. I am the biggest energy you will find. I do it for a living, but I was the most emotionally unavailable person because I wanted to be protected. Because like David, I thought I had to work for it, and I was tired of working for it. Right? And so we find these cubby holes that we go into, even though we know we're worthy, to shut that down. And what I will encourage you to do, something that Nadia and I do regularly, like routine walking, and it's the mirror exercise. And if you cannot do it for yourself, find someone you trust where you can do it. And it's really just looking inside of yourself, because you control that flow. And I will tell you that when I did that work, it was hard, it was tough, it was painful, it was deliberate. My story ends with my love story coming to get me from St. Louis in a U-Haul and bringing me here, which is why I'm here today. I'm no longer emotionally unavailable because I no longer wanted to have that list of people that I'd gone through or achieved or captured or dominated. I wanted to literally be present in the moment and be loved. And I think that a lot of that is us. Although we're not blaming ourselves, the mirror exercise allows you to look simply at you for 20 minutes, 15 minutes, however long you can, and extract what comes out of it. And naturally, your body will respond to you looking into your own eyes and discovering what it is that you're holding back from the rest of the world. Because there's something we're all waiting for.
Yeah, thank you, Ellen.
That was beautiful. David, you always have to take a step. I haven't been in a relationship. However, people in relationships come to me for advice. I don't know why. I'm a Libra, so, you know. But I think,
Happy birthday.
thank you. The most important relationship you're ever gonna have is with yourself. You were born with that, you die with that, and alone, period. So, I think although I haven't been in a relationship, I know a little bit more about what I want now. And it's about being honest with yourself too, you know, because no one here is perfect. We're always working on ourselves and towards our, I don't mean to get philosophical, but I feel like each of us individually is like an individual unique flower. We bloom in our own time, we blossom in our own time, etc., etc. You just have to take a step back and look at yourself and what do I want? What am I doing to not, or what am I doing to get what I want? And I think, I don't know, I can't sum in the words what I feel having a relationship with yourself means, because it's everything. Because when you love yourself, it doesn't matter if someone's there or not. It's self-sustaining. You don't need someone to add value because you value yourself. You find it within, and everything outside of you reflects that.
And I think I just want to add to that. I think it's like, so.
And I think we touched on this earlier about isolation. And so something that I did, part of my act, is I worked on myself. You know, I did the whole OSHA, Haruki Murakami, and what I found out is I couldn't relate to other people, to strangers. Like, I can go and talk to people, but I was isolating myself. And so it's important that you do work in community, that you are out there and putting yourself out there and saying, like, I mean, I'm doing, this is new, I'm learning this, and it's really hard for me to come out and be like, I struggle with, you know, doing dishes, for real. Like, my sink is piled up with stuff, and I don't have a dishwasher. I live in an old home. And that's something that, like, so what? You don't do the dishes. What's the big deal? But, like, sometimes, like, we pretend on things that really don't even matter. People don't give a shit about that. They see you, they see your beauty, they see, like, this amazing person. And so that guy that you're looking for, or that relationship that you're looking for, he's right there, but because you're so caught up in you, and I'm caught up in myself, and this self, that, you know, he just walks right by, and he goes to the next person. And you're like, why is that happening to me? Well, who's gonna talk to you? Your armor. You're like carrying this, like, sack of potatoes. Like, nobody wants that, so. Okay, so I will kind of wrap it up, because I feel like we're all touching on the same points. But I just wanted to say one thing that I've noticed is that we like to just follow whatever's going on at the moment. So right now, everybody's back, booed up, everybody's getting married, everybody's having children. So you look at yourself and you're thinking like, dang, I want that. Like, but it's nothing wrong with being single. When you take that time for yourself, and you really learn yourself, and you really start seeing, because you do so many beautiful things on a daily basis,
But what we do is we pull out that one negative thing that we did today and ignore the 50 other things that we did positive. And then so it's just like sitting down with the candles lit, lights off, I don't know, like just getting in your vibe, and it's just you. And you reflecting on your day, you thinking about what went right, you just saying affirmations, and literally taking time to work on you and not so focused on the relationship. Because once you find your worth, it's that you're not going to sell yourself at a discount no more. So I think that's one thing that we do is we just look at everybody else and it's like, I want that. And it's fine to want it, but I think that we don't have enough courage to know that I can be by myself for a year. I don't have to have a boyfriend or girlfriend. Like, I can be by myself for a couple years if I need to. Like, if that's what I need to do to find me, then let me do that. But we want to be loved. We want to be hugged on. We want to, we want that intimacy. But I just think that we have to take a step back. And if you've never taken time to literally just be single and just focus on you, then just do that. And then you're going to start attracting the vibes. Because then they see you.
They gonna come to you.
I just want to say this real quick. I don't have a problem being single. My main thing that I just really want to make sure that I'm...
You don't have a problem at all. It's just
Yeah, no, I don't. And I'm aware of that.
Complete. We are all whole and complete. There are no problems. There is no right or wrong.
Yeah, I think my main issue is that I want to make sure that I'm aligned with who I truly am and the essence of who I am, and I'm not allowing any previous hurt or trauma to block my destiny or to taint my vision of myself or the person who I see myself with, because I do tend to attract people who kind of have a hidden admiration for me, where I have to like squeeze crumbs out of them of what looks like what I want, as opposed to someone who is willingly giving me love. You understand what I'm saying? And that's probably just coming from like having to work for love as a kid, or like taking love as a punishment, so you earn it back, that sort of thing. So it's just, yeah, sorry? Yeah, that's another conversation. We ain't gonna go there. But anyway, that's the point that I just wanted to make clear. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, this is a fantastic discussion. I really wanted to touch on some of the points that I heard earlier that kind of like had me thinking. And one was the list that David did of all the requirements that we all have. And it was a tall order. It seemed to be a tall order, which I mean, everybody has one. But I think our social media has us with that being, this is acceptable. And this is the way everything should be. And this is, if you don't have all of this stuff, then you should always be single for the rest of your life. And people are not going to come with parts of them that are broken. Well, all of us have something that's off with us. But all of us deserve to be loved, and all of us, if we look inside, have the capacity to love. And I think sometimes when the whole thought process of being single, which is, it's a wonderful thing to discover yourself, and I think we go through that. But it's also, when you're in the relationship, even if it's got some hiccups in it, I think that we have to learn in the relationship at times what we're